topic, as we always have our monthly technical meeting. We welcome you warmly. We request that you sit down and relax, and hopefully you will leave today definitely better than you came in knowledge and understanding. At the best, or at the least rather, you would consolidate what you already know, and that makes it better for us all. And we do encourage you to also chime in and be part of the conversation. That which you know can also be shared. Without further ado, we'll get started with the preliminaries of the activities. I'd like to invite a volunteer to lead us in opening prayer. Any volunteer? Okay, Simeon, we can take the national anthem that captures us. Go ahead, thank you. One nation bound in freedom, peace, and unity. And we pray that the good Lord continue to hold us up as a nation, strengthen us, enriching us, even in our deepest, most difficult time as a nation. We'll stand and we'll survive as one nation. I'd like to make welcome the YP chair and the person of Engineer Justice to come lead us with the safety moment. Thank you. Justice, over to you.
Good evening. Oh, please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, very well.
Okay, so safety is a backdrop. I'm also encouraging our industry that we take all our activities and do all our activities safely. This meeting is no stranger to that, and we have to follow the following safety protocols or precautions during this meeting. You mute your mic when you're not speaking. Yeah, so if you're not speaking, mute your mic. And when you want to speak, you can either use the chat box, either a C for comments or a Q for questions, right? And raise up your hands, and if you want to speak, and you wait for when you're being called. And if you're driving, please don't join this meeting if you're driving, because you can have distractions, and we don't want an incident. We don't want LFIs actually. So we want to be fine during the meeting and after the meeting. And also ensure that if you're in the office environment, ensure that you can see the fire alarm with your headset if you're using your headset and your headset is on, right? And we know the country is not safe, and let's try to be as alert as possible. There can be kidnapping activities and also any activities at all, yeah? So try to be as alert as possible in your environment, and please try to stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Justice. Thank you. I'll move up here to the next, which is to welcome us in the welcome address. And I'd like to invite the lady behind the wheel, the lady steering the section, leading us right in the right direction. The person that made quite a number of these things happen, interfacing with us. Ladies and gentlemen, your hands are not busy. You make welcome our session chair and the person of Engineer Ngozi Okonkwo. Madam, you're welcome for your opening address. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for this wonderful introduction. A lot of times, the way you wrap me, I keep wondering whether you're talking about the same Ngozi or maybe they are two Ngozi Okonkwo.
This is what it is. You are. Thank you, madam. And well done for all you do.
Okay, thanks everyone. I really want to appreciate everyone who has made time to join this call, and most especially Chudi for agreeing to share your knowledge on this important topic with us. SPE gives us that opportunity to always come to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And it's really something wonderful, especially when we consider the environment we are in right now. We are getting lectures free of charge. We are developing ourselves free. I mean, when we want to tick the box at the end of the year, what we have achieved, we are going to count all these lectures that we have taken free as part of the things we achieved at the end of the year. Thanks to TIC for always coming up and identifying very strong professionals to guide us through. We are really grateful. So I don't want to take a lot of our time because I know Chudi has a lot to give to us today, and I'm actually looking forward to it so that we can keep developing our skills for today, tomorrow, and much later down the line. So let's listen to him, and thanks everyone. Thank you.
Indeed, a platform where we learn and relearn, unlearn, and fill it back again. And I do want to encourage us in this call to have a conversation, mimic a virtual, a face-to-face event where we can use the chat box to drop in our comments and ask questions. Thank you very much, Madam, for those words. And I hope we all take them seriously and take them to heart. I'd like to invite the moderator. And the moderator is no other person than one of us who's very vast in this field, and the person of Ofure Perfection Ogege. I'd like to use from my screen because this admit that pops up on the screen once in a while. Okay, so Ofure Perfection Ogege is a certified petroleum engineer of rare diligence with a track record of consistently delivering projects with effective stakeholder management. Currently works with Shell since 2009, where he functions as a reservoir engineer. And that is it on the technical. Quite sound, delivered a lot of things. Away from work, she is the co-founder of the Global Reach Girls Network, which is saddled with providing far-reaching ramifications of support to over 200 women and teenage girls. GRG organizes virtual and physical workshops, seminars, and Instagram live sessions targeted at empowering women to be more and to do more. Away from that, in our SPE life, which is where we know her very well and cherish her, she is the immediate past YP chair for section 103, Port Harcourt. Amongst the myriad other roles she had held, through the years, both in the board members, she was deservedly abundantly decorated with 2023 SPE Regional African Young Professional Outstanding Service Award, 2003 Dr. Ademola Adeyemi Bello Young Professional Service Award for Nigerian Council, 2023 Port Harcourt Section Distinguished Service Award, 2022 Port Harcourt Section Young Professional of the Year Award, amongst others. She's a mentor, away from that again, giving back to the society, motivator, maestro of leadership, having had the privilege of working with a crop of undeniably volunteer juggernauts. She aspires to impact positively on others' with her life story and achievements continually. Her personal mantra is we can be our best wherever and in whatever we do with effort and God on our side. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Ofure Ogege Perfection. Thank you very much, Ofure, for accepting to moderate this session. I'll hand over the mic to you. You lead the charge through the rest of the presentation until we'll come back. Thank you, and back over to you.
Thank you, Captain J. Good evening, everyone. Please confirm you can hear me.
Loud and clear, and can see you also.
Awesome, awesome. Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to the February monthly technical meeting for Port Harcourt section. And thank you, Captain J, for the warm introduction. It promises to be a wonderful time here how else would you want to spend your Friday evening if not this kind of opportunity to acquire knowledge? And like section chair has mentioned, opportunity to learn. And we can't just get enough, right? And I would be introducing the speaker because I am not the speaker of the day. And he's an experienced person in this field. Indeed, when I saw the topic at first, I'm like, wow, this is a really, really great topic about the role of contemporary technologies in our field, in the oil and gas industry, right? And indeed, I will introduce the speaker of the day, the person of engineer Chudi Okenwa. And I will just go through his citation briefly, and Chudi will then come up to do justice to the interesting subject of the day. Chukwudi Okenwa is the Petroleum Production Engineering Discipline Leader in Equinon Production UK. He has over 12 years experience in petroleum production engineering, which ranges from feed development to production management activities. Chudi's competencies include, and indeed are not limited to, assets modeling, well performance surveillance, well design and workover concept evaluation, daily production optimization, also involved in hydraulic fracturing and even flow assurance. Chudi actually started his petroleum engineering career in Bergen, Norway with Equinon. And indeed, he has been involved in lots and lots of projects, delivering projects that cut across the different areas of competence I had mentioned. And sometime in 2019, Chudi was part of the production team that successfully started the multi-million-dollar Marina FEED safely, and has since then been directly involved in the safe startup of 7 production wells and 1 fracture injection well, provided onshore production surveillance and well service support to offshore operations, and has also led the first oil producer to water injection conversion project. Sometime in 2022, he assumed this role, the new role of being the discipline lead for Equinon, and is saddled with the responsibilities of providing stakeholder management to ensure compliance to key strategies. Chudi holds a first-class degree in mechanical engineering, bachelor's from the Aston University, Birmingham. He also holds MSc and DIC in petroleum engineering from Imperial College, London. And ladies and gentlemen, Chudi is also a chartered engineer with the Institution of Mechanical Engineers. Can we all please make welcome our speaker? You can use the virtual clapping icon to just welcome him the SP way. Thank you so much, Chudi, for accepting to come share knowledge with this wonderful community. And we know we're going to get knowledge and insightful tips on this subject area. So please, you're welcome, and the floor is open. It's yours.
Thank you, moderator, for the very nice introduction. I would also like to say thank you all for allowing me to present. And just a short addition to that, I actually grew up in Port Harcourt, but left some years ago. And my dad practiced in Nigeria. My dad, Engineer Christian Chukwudi Okenwa, was a production petroleum engineer for many years as well. So I'm glad to be within this space. So I'll go on to share my screen. So please let me know when and if you can see my screen.
I can see your screen.
All right then. So I will just get started then. So the purpose of my presentation today is to share ideas on how contemporary technology, such as supervisory control and data acquisition, in conjunction with integrated asset modeling platforms, can be used with core petroleum production engineering techniques to add value. For the agenda, I'll basically touch on some highlights on the current state of the oil and gas or energy industry. I will then touch on a brief history on SCADA and IAM. And I will then go on to introduce some problems, I've witnessed in my experience in well design and well surveillance. I will then go on to introduce some methodologies on how I believe these challenges can be overcome, and then I'll then finish with the conclusion. My expected outcome is to basically stimulate good discussions within the wider petroleum engineering community on similar applications. And the risk is I run out of time. And the opportunity for me, which is actually a big one, is to get to know you all, and you all get to know me as well. So to set the scene, the plot on your top left is basically the oil price, and basically it's very volatile, especially if you focus on the last 10 years. So basically, for energy companies, it's quite challenging to make business plans. And then in addition to that, we also have to consider our environment. And the plot on your bottom left is basically showing targets to curb CO2 emissions. Yeah, and these targets were basically the post-Paris agreements in the 2015. Some of them came from that. So this is actually a big deal in the industry just now. And in addition to that, there are a lot of mature basins in the oil and gas industry just now, and I happen to work in one of them, which is the UK continental shelf. So basically, we're on a decline since the early 2000s, and this context basically means that as a modern day petroleum engineer, it's more challenging to create value compared to before. So gone are the fields with big volumes, good reservoir qualities that could easily be produced. But having said that, I should also add that fossil fuels or oil and gas still has an important role to play in the community just now, or basically to mankind. And basically, you could ask the gentleman in the picture below there. And then, so what is SCADA? Like I alluded to, this is the supervisory control and data acquisition system. Earliest use can be traced back to the 1960s when it was first developed for use in the United States manufacturing sector. It was widely adopted by other industries, including the oil and gas industry in the 1970s. Many oil and gas assets use this to acquire data from their facilities and wells, and also manually control field actuator equipment. So it's actually quite a important system nowadays. It also plays a critical role for safety as well. And for integrated asset modeling, again, this is actually it's not so new. The initial concept was was thought of basically in the 60s and 70s in the groundwater industry, and shortly after then it was adopted by the oil and gas industry as well. But of course, hydrocarbon production and water production are totally different. So hydrocarbons, you're talking about multi-phase flow, and basically hydrocarbon production systems consist of links of complex systems. For example, if you look at the schematic on your left, where you have your reservoir, which in itself is a complex multi-phase flow in porous media system, and then this produces to your well and flow lines, which is a complex multi-phase flow in pipe system. And then you have your process system as well, which is designed to give you your target sales fluid, and which is also another complex system. So traditional asset modeling was basically too static, in the sense that the links between these components were not dynamic enough to do certain studies. So this is where integrated asset modeling came in, to basically to increase the dynamic links between these complex systems. So for problem statements, I'll start off with what I've learned during well design. A disclaimer here: well design is actually a more thorough process. So it involves it's very thorough. It involves a lot of topics. So material suitability, your completion fluid to ensure you don't have damage to the to your formation. But what I want to really focus on is a term I call hydraulic consistency. And what do I mean by this? This term simply means that the well profiles you generate for economic evaluation adequately fulfill the well system performance characteristic within your facility constraints. For those petroleum engineers in the room, the plot on your top right, you'll be familiar with that. That's basically a typical system plot. There are a couple of ways to estimate recoverable volumes for making business plans. You have analytical techniques using decline curve, and you also have more complex methods like the numerical techniques. But in my experience, it is more challenging to estimate well conditions that are equivalent to those volumes. For example, how is my flowing bottom hole pressure changing as I'm delivering those volumes, or how are my phase fractions changing? This is actually more complex to predict. And best endeavors in the industry include using your calibrated numerical simulator in conjunction with outflow performance curves to generate these profiles. But still, you still have some limitations. For example, at each time step, the current setup of these systems won't allow you to vary your artificial lift control variable if your wells need artificial lift. So it doesn't quite capture everything completely, so you're forced to make certain assumptions. And then I introduced integrated asset modeling techniques initially, but to do that comprehensively, if you're an asset that's resource constrained, that could actually be a challenge. And why is hydraulic consistency important? Because this could actually lead to a suboptimal well completion, and that could actually erode your bottom line or hit your bottom line significantly. So basically, the loss of value of your well. So it's quite an important parameter in my view. And then for problem statement 2, I'll touch on production surveillance. Again, this is another wide topic, and can touch on a number of areas. For example, monitoring your wells, flow lines, sand management is basically setting criteria for your wells. It's a broad area. But one thing that makes it all possible is being able to know what your well is producing. But and since hydrocarbon systems are multi-phase flow, it's quite difficult and challenging to estimate that. So conventionally, a test separator is used to separate different phases, and then each phase is measured with a single phase meter, as shown in the diagram on your right. Other methods could include using partial separation, where you have your liquid phases going out together and the gas phase separately, or using physical multi-phase meters on your flow line. So the drawback to your test separator is, although this offers good measurements or good accuracy, it's highly dependent on the uptime and operability of your test separator. Therefore, a better solution would be complementing your test separator with other means, such as virtual flow meters and your multi-phase flow meters. And now, while multi-phase flow meters are good, they also have some limitations in the sense that you have to rely heavily on your vendors to calibrate, and if your field is quite complex, with basically difficult fluid properties, then calibrating the multi-phase flow meter could actually be challenging. The virtual flow metering concept basically means you're using physics-based models or correlations derived from physics-based models in conjunction with data to estimate rates. While these are typically low cost compared to your MPFMs, but you need to calibrate them properly. So basically, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you don't calibrate them, then you don't get good results. And to elaborate on that problem a bit more, on your top left is basically a schematic of um, a well rate allocation that a production engineer would typically do. So the top line is basically your total field production, which could come from your fiscal meter. So the total, for example, total oil you could be offloading to your FPSO, etc., or through your pipeline, etc. And then the line in black is what we call a well allocation factor, and which is basically well rate over the total field rate. And in a case where you just have a test separator, this will be your well rate from your test. Basically, your test is where you route a well to a test separator. So you have a well rate from a test, divide that by the total rate, and by using that factor, you now get an estimated well production. And as you can see, it's basically straight lines between test points. But then the schematic on your right is basically a schematic of a well, and I'm going to use this to try and describe several, potential virtual metering concepts. So if you look at that diagram, basically you could see it's split up into three systems. You could see your inflow performance relationship system, which basically governs flow from your sand face into your well. You could then see your VLP part of the system, and then you can see your choke. So basically your well, you could basically look at it of consisting of three subsystems, and each of these relationships in combination with data can actually give you rates. And sometimes you could actually combine two of these methods to give you another methodology. For example, you can combine your VLP and IPR to give you a system plot, and then you supply your wellhead pressure, and then you get rates. And these can be set up in your integrated asset modeling workflows. So an example of how this will look is, if you look at the plot on your bottom left, you could see that your well rate estimates is more in line with actual well data. For example, in this case, wellhead pressure. So as that changes, your estimate changes, which is more variable than just having straight lines, like the plot above shows. But to do this, or to make sure you're not getting garbage out, it's quite important to calibrate it. And part of what I'm going to show today is a work process to make sure that that's properly calibrated. So I spoke about the issue of hydraulic consistency. So I'm going to introduce a workflow here that can help ensure that you have hydraulic consistent profiles. So, but for this to be possible, key enablers are the integrated asset modeling platforms. For example, I've used the Petroleum Expert Resolve platform a lot in my career, and also the numerical methods you learn in school. These are actually quite powerful techniques, but the skill there is being able to frame your problem to allow this technique give you a solution. And then, and for me, an objective is being able to run through your profiles quickly to verify if those profiles are deliverable or not. So having said that, I'll go into the workflow to try and explain this. A disclaimer here is that this workflow is actually quite simplified. The real workflow is quite busy or cumbersome, but I've tried to summarize it into the main components. So basically, you need to be able to receive data from the reservoir engineer, and the format the reservoir engineer can provide. So is it flow bottom pressures, phase fractions in the right units, etc. And then you need a system to sort of tell you how big or how much data you have. And after your house, sort of like housekeeping is complete, or housekeeping is complete, then you now start thinking of assigning realistic system constraints. And this is where there's sort of a lot of problems in profile generation, because sometimes some constraints are more theoretical rather than real. So in this case, for me, the wellhead pressure, the minimum wellhead pressure is actually a good constraint to think about. So for example, if that's defined, then you look through your profile, you get your boundary, your system boundary. Your minimum boundary in this case could be what your wellhead pressure is at your minimum artificial lift parameter. Your maximum boundary can be what your wellhead pressure is at your maximum artificial lift control parameter. And then if you look through, if your minimum boundary is more than your minimum wellhead pressure, that means you're confident that your well has enough energy to push your fluid stream through. So you're happy with that time step, and then you continue. But if your maximum boundary is less than your minimum wellhead pressure, then you have a problem. And then you now pass it on to these numerical methods to try and find what the deliverable rate will be at your maximum artificial lift variable. And if you're within those bounds, then you can then use the same technique to actually find what a realistic artificial lift control variable will be. Because most of the time when doing simulations, default settings will just make sure you have you have a fixed artificial lift control variable. A control variable could be your gas lift rate or your ESP frequency. So basically you assume one figure throughout the lifetime, but this allows you to put a more realistic figure. So moving on to the second methodology. So for this, so I earlier introduced that for production surveillance, knowing your well production is quite important, and I've introduced the virtual metering technique. So for me, my experiences is based on the PETEX suite of tools, and a key enabler again is the integrated asset modeling platform. I've mentioned SCADA as well, and in this case, you also have the digital oil field platform. That's the PETEX IVM, and a rough schematic is what you see on your top left here, where you get SCADA receiving data from your field. And then you have your digital oil field that consists of a data cache, basically able to receive data of different formats. And then you have a visualization part to view that data. And this sits on top of your well and network hydraulic tools, which also includes your integrated asset modeling platform. So with this combination, you actually have flexibility to do quite a lot of things. But having said that, for me, to get a very good virtual metering system, your petroleum engineers have to have full control of your input variables. Because this system could be set up in different ways. You could set it up in MATLAB or use a very complex code. But if you're or set up very difficult processes to update them, and if that's the case, then you're going to have a hard time maintaining them, because we know wells are quite dynamic and things change quite fast. So you need a system that is easy to adjust. And in addition to that, being able to verify your input variables or to make sure that they are correct is actually a very big point, a very big importance, which I'm going to talk through in a bit using the workflow on the right here. And then another important point is whatever input goes into the algorithm has to be very robust. For example, if you're getting data from SCADA, I typically tend to lean on surface data like wellhead pressure, etc., compared to downhole data. Because if anything happens to that, let's say ESP has an issue, basically all that data is gone. And if you don't have that data, your system fails. So relying on more robust data is actually a good point to consider. So having said that, going to the workflow then. So what you watch out for is you can use the allocation factor I introduced earlier as a KPI to know the status of your well rate estimates. If it's above a certain so this should be 1. If it's too far away from 1 or within an acceptable limit, then you request a well test. And for me, the next step of analyzing and then you analyze your your parameters from your well test, and these are data from SCADA. You analyze it on your screen or your workspace. There are different ways of viewing this. Either you use Pipe, IMS systems, or you could import this into Excel. But one thing is, you know, these parameters should be stable, and you should actually, and this is something that usually causes a lot of friction with the operating team. You should actually stand, the petroleum engineer, you should actually stand your ground to request this, and fight to show the value of why your well test is important. Because operators, sometimes they have different KPIs. They want plant stability, but as a petroleum engineer, you're thinking about optimizing long-term benefits of the field, etc. So getting a stable test is actually a big deal, and it might be surprisingly to some, getting it's actually more difficult than you think. So once you get a stable period, then you now summarize and analyze the data, and you can do that in softwares like Prosper. Things I tend to look out for is just checking how they fit within widely recognized flow correlations. For example, if you use SPETEX, you know that if you're estimating downhole pressures from your test, they should be within your Duns and Ross modified estimated bottom hole pressures or your Fancher and Brown no slip flow correlation. And then if it's a well with artificial lift, for example, where you have gauges at the inlet and outlet of your ESP, then you can also see the delta pressure your model is predicting and compare it to that. And if they are reasonably aligned, then you're happy to use that data to update your virtual metering algorithm. Yeah. So for conclusions, it is fair to say that due to the current challenges in the oil and gas industry, you need to be innovative as a petroleum engineer. You need to think of techniques for that achieves more with less. You need to think of basically work processes that are not readily available that could maybe help you create value. And then the development of SCADA and these integrated asset modeling platforms over the years are definitely key enablers and allows you to do a lot more. And then for well designs, I introduced the problem of hydraulic consistency. And basically, a combination of IAM workflows with bespoke numerical analysis can be applied to solve this issue. And then in well operations, knowledge production rate is quite important, but like I said, it's challenging. But then using IAM, SCADA, workflows, and DOF combined with a robust work process can give you fit for purpose estimates. And I think above all, good collaborations with multiple disciplines is key. You have to be a good communicator. You have to be able to convince your CRO that that test is important for me. You have to be able to describe the data you need for your completion engineer, to feed into your workflow. So, having said that, that's me. So, I'm happy to take questions.
Wow, thank you so much, Chude, for that insightful and wonderful presentation. I think this is a very key subject area in the petroleum engineering space, right? And I will just give a quick recap before we go into the Q&A. And please, while I do that, if you have questions for our speaker, you can please drop on the chat. Please, very important. It's here to take your questions to ensure that you don't leave here with some areas that you're not clear about. So indeed, thanks again, Chude. You actually began with more or less like telling us or sharing statistics with us around our industry, right? Some things have been happening over time from the historical volatility in the oil price and how it has dropped at some points. So more or less like fluctuations in the oil price. And then, of course, coming into the space of the Paris Agreement, where the energy transition comes in, achieving net zero and the likes. And of course, we've experienced decline in oil and gas production over time, which indeed is something that's in achieving operational efficiency, you want to see how you can properly address that. With everything that's happening, you want to see how you can manage your existing assets to get the best, the optimum from all of these assets, be it oil, be it gas, and also see how you can create value, which is very important. And then you went ahead to show some workflows and that actually speaks to these different areas, and also introducing some contemporary technologies, the likes of SCADA and IAM. I think this is a really, really fantastic workflow technology that's currently in the industry, and the use can't just be overemphasized because you need those data, especially for, like you mentioned, an integrated team. We all work together, but at the end of the day, the business make decisions with the forecast, right? And how reliable your data is actually speaks to how the forecast you're going to get at the end of the day that will be used for business decisions. So ensuring that, for instance, the SCADA that provides the real-time data that feeds into the DOF, and also the visualization platform, and the engineer coming up with making some engineering judgments, it's really very important. So you told us workflow around well design, production surveillance, which is very, very important because you showed us some forecasts about using a single test point data, and at least when you have just a single point data, the kind of decision or forecast you get is quite going to be different from using workflows like this to actually get what the profile of the well would be over time, because indeed it actually changes over time. The way the well, or what the well is producing now, is not going to be what it's going to be producing in the next few years. So all of those workflows that were really very important, from well design to production surveillance, and even the metering space, where we then talk about these tools. And of course, the input variable that goes into all of these is also very key. And one particular point where you mentioned as also very key is that we as petroleum engineers, for instance, reservoir engineers, the production technologies, most times we need the well test data. For instance, when you walk through when you look at the allocation and you see that, oh, it's below what you're expecting, and you're like, let me probe further. Most times the operation guys, indeed, our KPIs are different, right? They will tend to push back, but you as an engineer know what you want. You know that how important this data is. You need to actually let them know the value that you're going to be getting from acquiring those data, because decisions are going to be made, you're going to run your forecast, and all of these at the end of the day ties into what the company is going to get at the end of the day. And reliability of the forecast is very, very key. I think the conclusion was spot on too, where you talked about, of course, these challenges are there in the industry, but at least to an extent, we have been able to have tools or workflows that can help us to actually handle some of these areas that are really very key to get the best from our assets. And indeed, we don't do this in silos, right? We work together as teams, and collaboration is very key, from the subsurface guys to the guys at the flow station and all of that. We all need to work as an integrated team. And I think in my own space, in my own company, I see that happening. Like, everybody puts heads together to say, yes, oh, this well is not maybe producing an optimum. How can we get it back there? It's just more or less like integration. And I see when everybody collaborates, we actually get valuable results. So thank you so much. That was really insightful. And I think it's now time for us to take questions. I know we've been able to get a lot from this session. Yes, it was a quick one, but it was really, really packed and insightful. So I would just check if we have some questions on the chat already, and I would read through them briefly. Just a minute. Okay, I see we have some questions already. I would start with the one from Sydney. Sydney says, what can be the acceptable limits for the allocation factor prior to requesting for well tests?
That's a good. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, I had some issues there, but that's actually a very good question. From my experience, it depends on the asset. If you're a subsea asset where getting realistic or very good flow rate tests can be difficult, usually you could say maybe 10% deviation. But if you're a dry wellhead where you have test separator readily available, then an asset could be more stringent and go for 5%. But this should be widely accepted within the asset. So let's say the guys that you're doing forecasts for, or the reservoir engineer, he should be aware of those uh, margins of error.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for that response. Another question from Sydney says, if allocation factor is within limits, does it mean monthly flow tests will not be advised to annul production cutback?
No. So basically, if it's within limit, it just means that your rate estimate is valid for that well, and you could use it for whatever reporting or analysis you want. So that's basically just this. It basically that question is basically to verify that you're happy with your well rate estimates. So if, for example, the well you're looking at your estimate and maybe your well is doing more than it should, then you can cut back. But yeah, it's just basically describing the status or the quality of your well rate estimate. I don't know if that's clear.
Yes. Sydney, I'm sure that helped, right? So if it's within limits, you don't need to shout. You can go ahead to use it for your analysis, update your well models. But if it's not what you're expecting, it's something to say, yes, we need to go do a well test. And I think that's where, of course, the value needs to be spelled out to say, yes, we need to test this well to know what exactly is giving us or what the well is currently doing. So from the rates to depends if it's oil or gas, from WG arrows or the geo arrows and all of that. So all of those are really very important. Okay, so I'll just check. Do we still have some more questions? And I think you had something on the chat too. Wait.
Just
yeah.
to bring some voice in the room, and I also do encourage if there are people that like to unmute and bring in the voice. And thanks a lot, actually, quite insightful. I'm just thinking about all of this, and they always tend to happen most in the dynamic space. I wonder why, and what then is the link? Because sometimes we don't return back into the static states. And that helps us, see things a bit more in the 3D sense. So we've got a static model, we've taken them into the dynamic space, we're training, we're well testing. But most times in practice, we don't come back to update. Maybe we are still within the ballpark GRV, ballpark volumetrics. We don't tend to have need for it. Do you see us needing to come back, or that's a good practice since there are no issues? Because we only begin to consider the static space, oh, did you miss out a fault when there are issues with flow compartmentalization and all that? But when things are going on well, we don't come back to check back on that porosity, check back on that net to cross, revisit our static model. We just fly in the dynamic space. Do you see a link backwards, or we just keep it as it were? And then secondly, the tool itself, is it a proprietary tool? Do you encourage people that it's something they can find? Because that's also one advantage with SPE, because there could be people that want to take it up, or do they have to contact you if they want to use that to be their monitoring tool? Because it tends to look like a good one-stop shop for quite a number of things. Is it a proprietary tool, or is it a commercial tool? Just those 2 points. You don't necessarily have to answer the first, but it's just my thought. You can share yours too. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Those are actually very, very good questions, and definitely you should be going back to your static model, because yeah, it's your characterization of your subsurface, and that impacts your dynamic results. And for me, my experience is usually resource constraints that stops you closing the loop back to the static, and to do it fully. And sometimes, we have let's say managers need quick decisions now, and you don't have enough time to sort of go take all you've learned to to go back and then update update your model, or maybe if you get a transient test analysis and it's telling you, oh, maybe I have a fault here which is different from your model, to now go and bake that in. So you should do it, but usually from my experience it takes a long time before all the all the data, production data, or what you've observed to be baked in. It does take a long time. Now you do have proprietary tools or techniques to make that process faster. For example, you have fast model updates in Petrel, and also there are some techniques now where people actually use 3D seismic very quickly to go and update their static model. But I'm not a geologist, so but I know it's out there. But to answer your question, it's really important. And with regards to the tools, I think uh, so the main tools are for me is the Petroleum Experts IPM and IFM suites. Yeah, so these are, so in your IPM suite you have tools that cover well network hydraulic, so wells net that's for wells you have Prosper, for the networks you have GAP, and for the integrated asset model is Resolve I use. And the other, to be honest, the other tools out there, but those are the core tools to have. But then to build in the workflows, that's where it gets a bit, you might need me or someone like me to give details on how to set it up. So that's where the skill comes in. But for the core building blocks, your well model in Prosper, your GAP model, your Resolve model, or even your Eclipse model. Eclipse is usually Schlumberger and not PETEX. The PETEX reservoir simulator is Reveal, which could actually be used to do some fancy stuff as well. I don't know if that answered your question. I hope I didn't talk too much.
No, absolutely. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. So,
Indeed. Thank you, Trudy, for those responses. Quite apt. So I think we'll just take two more questions and we would be done. So we have a couple on the chat. And Thank God is asking, how do we determine the productivity index of a well?
yeah, that's a very good question. Can I answer that quickly? Or are there more
Absolutely. Go
questions
ahead.
coming? Okay, yeah. So this is actually a very, very good question. So for productivity index, you could actually get that from your PT analysis. So basically, if you now to use Sapphire, you could get that through that means. But using your nodal analysis software and well test, like I've explained, if you know the rates the well is doing and you have downhole gauge data, then you can actually get your well productivity. So basically, your productivity is your rates divided by your reservoir pressure minus your flame bottom hole pressure. So basically, from your test, you could get your rates and flame bottom hole pressure, but your reservoir pressure still remains a problem. So that should be gotten by either shorting tests, or maybe you can ask. So basically, you shorten the well, depending on your fluid system. If it's heavy oil like I've worked in, it could take a long time to stabilize. But if it's more conventional oil, it could take shorter. But those shorting times need to be agreed with your reservoir engineer. He could basically design a test in Sapphire. So basically, that's how you could use nodal analysis to get your productivity. But for reservoir engineers, if you're more comfortable in PTA, you can get it from that method. But you need to compare both methods actually. Does that answer your question? Was that correct? Yep.
Yeah, it does indeed. PI is actually rate over Jordan, and indeed you can get it from transient analysis tests. Yeah. So a final question from Sydney said, in line with this, if oil in water or water in oil emulsion exists, does it mean we have to use a suitable model to estimate the oil viscosity other than using the viscosity from PVT tests in order to capture the actual well PI due to fluid change?
That's actually a very deep question. So to be honest, emulsions can be a real problem, especially when you have heavy oil or ESPs. You stand a good chance of having emulsions. So typically, it's advisable to have lab tests with your actual fluid. There are different labs that can do that for you. Baker, as an example, where they sort of mix your fluid with water to artificially impose. So you sort of estimate what sort of shear rate your ESP system could infer, and then you apply it in the lab, and then measure the viscosity. So that gives you an idea of, from that test you get a relative viscosity plus. So you get relative viscosity on your y-axis, and then water cut on your x-axis. So that you can directly import into Prosper, and that in combination with your PVT can then be used to describe the fluid in your system. Typically, a rough assumption could be that your emulsions start from your pump and above. But of course, in reality, it could actually start below. But that's something that, with discussions, you can agree with the asset. But from my experience, we typically assume it's from your pump above, because the pump is the source of the energy. So that's typically how you model that. And then when you have a well test, to check if those correlations are correct, because what your PVT does is it estimates your viscosity at 0 water cut, and then that correlation then estimates it at, as your water cut changes. So you need to calibrate that with well test data. And if your DP inferred from your model matches up with what is being measured, then you're happy with your correlation and your PVT. But if it's not, then you have to go and dig into your PVT or your correlation. It could be both are wrong or one or the other. Is that clear?
Yes, yes, it is. I'm sure, Sydney, that response was really helpful. I think that will be all the questions we'll be able to take this evening. And truly, it's been a wonderful time with you, listening to you, and also providing these fantastic responses to our questions. I think indeed this is a wonderful subject, right? This is core petroleum engineering, like, yes, system modeling and the likes, and it just paints the picture of how these different bits and bits contributes to the overall well productivity and what the well is able to deliver at the end of the day. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming to share knowledge with us this evening. We are really grateful. And as part of what we do here, we normally will present a certificate of appreciation just to acknowledge you for accepting to come do this and for at least allowing us to learn from you. And I would call the technical information chair, the person of Dr. Jude Osimobi, to help us hand over the certificates. Thank you.
Thank you, Ofure, for an excellent moderation. And thank you, Judy, for a good presentation that's sparked up a lot of discussion. There's a short request on the chat if we are allowed to share your slides with the Section 103 members only. So maybe
can I just maybe
okay, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I would just say for me, I'm happy, but let me just confirm with my company.
So not to put you on the spot,
yeah,
the Secretariat will continue to be in touch. So please do let us know on the update on that. And then also, if you want to be further contacted, feel free to use the chat box, email handles, technical handles, or LinkedIn, or however you wish. Please feel free to. So let's make it as if we're in a face-to-face as possible. Thank you. I'd like to invite the section chair and the person of Madam Ngozi to come present this certificate or delegate the presentation of this certificate to the presenter. Thank you, Madam.
Okay. Thanks, Judy. Really very insightful. Thanks for creating time for this. So I will delegate to one of the section officials to carry out this role. carry out this job. Yeah, MM.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chukwudi. We really appreciate your kind presentation. And I believe every one of us have one or two things that we've learned from what you've presented to us. No knowledge is a waste, and we believe we'll keep in touch. So on behalf of the SPE Section 103, on behalf of the section chairman, Madam Ngozi, and all the board members of Section 103, we hereby present this certificate of appreciation to you, in appreciation to your kind gesture in sharing your knowledge with us. We want to say thank you very much, and we look forward to having you again in any of our meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chidi. We'll go to the next. MM still on the mic. Go ahead.
Okay. So once again, good evening. This section is dedicated to, that's membership drive, right?
No,
you
the
see
next
your-
certificate to
can
the
you see the-
moderator.
Okay,
Can you see-
I'm done with that. Okay, I'm done with that.
Moderator.
I said, moderator.
Can you see your screen?
Okay, so the moderator. Okay, Ofure. Ofure Perfection Ogege. Former YP chair. We call her the star lady. We want to appreciate your moderation. You've done wonderfully well in moderating this event. And on behalf of the section and the board members of Section 103, we say thank you very much, and we present this certificate of appreciation to you. And you are one of us, and we'll continue to learn from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, MM, and thank you, Section Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, your certificate will be duly emailed to you from the Secretariat, and also in appreciation for this gesture. It's been a wonderful night learning technically from you. I'll hand over the mic for the rest of the program to also that will lead us through the rest of the program. We're back to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Captain J, MM, and of course our very own SC. And yes, it's time for photographs. And this is just an opportunity for us to create memories together. I know it's a virtual event, but of course we can also take pictures virtually. So I would encourage everyone on the call to please turn on your camera and give us a wonderful, wonderful smile. I see our speaker is already, his video is on already. So I would encourage other members here to please turn on your camera. And Simio would help us with a picture to help us at least keep this event as part of our archives, and just remember how Chudi came and helped share knowledge with us, and we had a wonderful time with him too. All right, I see some people already turning on theirs. I see Tengard, I see Joseph, Wanchuku. Let's keep it coming, please. It can be better. We can get more faces in the room. Okay, hi, I see Sydney. Sydney, thanks for dropping all those questions, and thanks to Chudi for providing the fantastic, fantastic responses today. Well done. I see Kumute. Well done, guys. So just a few seconds, just turn on your camera. It's going to be brief. Just give us your best smile. You can show us your 32. We would love to see it. All right, Simeon, I think you can go ahead to just help us with pictures. Make sure you don't miss this, so your face needs to be captured. Simeon, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Let us know when you're...
Okay, we are good.
Okay. So thank you so much, guys, for turning on your camera. And thanks so much, Trudy, once again, for a wonderful, wonderful session. We look forward to having you some other time. And please, anytime you visit Nigeria, feel free to come around. We'd love to. You said you're a Port Harcourt boy, so we'll look forward to having you around any of those times. But well done, and we wish you all the very best over there.
Thank you. Thank you. I also left my email and my LinkedIn handle, so in case you want to reach me.
Awesome. Please, let's show him how we do it. Everybody on the call, let's go follow our speaker and please connect with him. Ask all the questions that you couldn't ask today. And I know he's going to provide you the response that you need. But thank you so much for that kind gesture of sharing your details. All right, we'll be moving on now. Of course, I'm sure we've all had a wonderful time since we started. And of course, we'll be talking about sponsorship. So we normally have this event every month. And the sponsorship, this particular segment is just an opportunity to let you know that, yes, we're seeking for sponsorship and your company could be also here, one of the monthly technical meetings to share what you do, let people know about your new technologies, let people know about your service that you render. And SP, of course, SP monthly technical meeting, especially for the Port Harcourt section monthly technical meeting, is your go-to place. And I would want all of us to not miss this opportunity. You would please reach out to the people or the number on the screen if you're interested in sponsoring us, because of course there are benefits for your company too if you sponsor our events. So though we're doing this virtually, most times we have monthly technical meetings in person. So your company could say, yes, we want to sponsor the monthly technical meeting for March. And what are the perks from it? You gain strong visibility and also credibility amongst professionals, opportunity for you to showcase your fantastic products, gain recommendations, and even opportunity to sponsor bigger upcoming events, not just the monthly technical meetings. There are other events that SP will be doing in the course of the year. So we'd encourage you to grab this opportunity. Feel free to reach out to us via phone call and through the number on the screen or via the email sppHC@gmail.com. We look forward to partnering with you as you sponsor our events. So we'll move on now to another segment, and this is a fantastic one. It's the February monthly industry quiz. So in the course of preparing for this particular monthly technical meetings, we normally put out quizzes and we encourage members of the community or members of the SP Port Harcourt section, and even not just SP Port Harcourt section, everybody in the oil and gas industry to participate. And for the month of February, these are our winners. First, to just let everyone that participated know that you're a winner regardless. But of course, we also have some persons that were able to grab the first to third position. And the first position goes to Tamuno Imama Ajenenka, who is from IPES, is the first position. Congratulations, Imama. And the second position goes to Meyene Ekereke, who's from SP Unuyo, a student too. Congratulations, Ekereke. And the third position goes to Madwabuchi Ifeanyi Ogu, who is a COE student. COE is actually in Benin City, Center of Excellence, University of Benin. So this just to let you know that other people are also grabbing the fantastic prizes. So please, when we put out quizzes there, ensure that you participate. You never can tell, you could be the next winner. So the one for March will come up soon. Ensure that you participate. And just to say a big thank you to the sponsor of this month's quiz, the person of Israel Emmanuel, who is an MWD feed engineer, trainee at Sterling Oil EMP. So thank you, Emmanuel, for sponsoring these, and congratulations to all winners. Please, you can reach out to Pauline Wamaka, and I know your prize or your gifts will be given to you. And keep participating. All right. Okay, now I know when we have these meetings, most times it's not just SP members that are on the call. We also have people that are joining us for the first time. Yes, they work in the industry, but they are not members. I would call on the membership co-chair, the person of Udo, who will just give us a quick summary of how you can join SPE, how you can become a member of SPE. So Udo, please go ahead.
Okay, good evening once again, everyone. And this section is dedicated to our special participants, that's the non-members of SPE, and also the members that are, their membership status is not active to date. So we encourage everyone, if you were a member of SPE before and you are not up to date, we encourage you to renew your membership. And for non-members, you may wonder what SPE is all about. SPE is a Society of Petroleum Engineers, and it is an independent, non-profit organization, professional organization, with over 119 members in over 134 countries. I mean, there is a misconception because it's called SPE, Society of Petroleum Engineers, that is only for petroleum engineers. The good news is that SPE accommodates all disciplines that has to any business to do in the oil, gas, and energy industry. So nobody is left out. I mean, this is the only professional body that has such capacity. I've not seen any other professional organization that accommodates all disciplines as SPE does. So there are so many benefits of being an SPE members, and we have different categories of membership. We have the student membership, the young professional membership, and the senior memberships. And good news is that for student membership is free. So if you know any students within your environment, please do well to encourage them to join SPE and utilize this free opportunity in being a member for this great professional organization. You stand a chance to having some discounts in conferences. You stand a chance for free or discounted access to online education, seminars, presentation, just like what we've experienced today. Free technical knowledge sharing. With all these resources is to enable us as professionals to have a continuous professional development. And then there are free technical papers for members. About 10 free technical papers allocated for members each year. You have a subscription for journals and all the technical papers that you may think of. There's so much resources and knowledge embedded in SPE. You can go through our websites and you have a feel of what we are talking about and what you stand to benefit. Please, there are some links that were shared in the chat box. You can do well to get in touch with us through those links. The membership team, you can get in contact with us, get in contact with the secretariat, reach out to us. We are here to put you through. And we want to believe that you enjoy this and many more of what members of SPE are enjoying. We look forward to having you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Indeed, we look forward to welcoming you on board. If you have not renewed your membership for this year, please do well to do so. Moving on, would get into the upcoming events. Of course, we are never tired of ensuring we have the right information or get our members equipped with the right knowledge, right? So we're still having some upcoming activities or events, especially before the end of the month. The YP Space will be having the monthly Insights Forum. It's another technical session where you come learn about wellbore completions, the challenges, and the potential causes of failure in that space. So we have a speaker that will be coming from SLB, and it's going to be an insightful one. I would encourage everyone on the call to also join. It's happening on the 29th of February, just next week, Thursday. And also, we'll be having the IWD event, the International Women's Day. Yes, on the 8th of March would be the IWD for this year. And SPE Section 103 will be having our own IWD event. And you can see on the flyer to the left, the theme is Inspire Inclusion. and we'll be having renowned speakers from the industry come talk to us about inspire inclusion and how we can unleash the power of allyship. I think it's a very, very great subject. And one thing we should know is everyone should encouraged to attend, right? When we talk about allyship in this space, we talk about the male allies, how you can also help push and inspire inclusion in the workplace and every areas of our lives. So please, let's not just say, hey, it's a women event. We would encourage you all to join us on that day, male, female, come learn about how you can unleash that power of allyship. And it's going to be an in-person event. So the Share residential area, that's what we'll be having it on the 9th of March. It's Saturday. And I think that will be the best way to actually spend your Saturday evening. Oh, sorry, Saturday morning, because it's going to be by 9 a.m. And finally, on the list of upcoming activities, we have the Launch with SPE February edition. It's going to be happening next week, Tuesday. And this time around, it's going to be someone from the SPE International Space, the person of James Whitetalker, who's going to be doing justice to the theme, building international networks through SPE. Of course, you don't just want to have local networks, right? You also want to ensure that you have folks on network in the international space. And like the saying goes, your network is your net worth. So it's important that you join that session so you can learn how you can build international networks through SPE. It's very, very important. And that will be all for the activity. It's going to be virtual via Zoom. So the registration links are already out there. The flyer for all of these events are out there. Do well to register for the women events. It's important that you register to secure your seats. Yeah. So that would be it. And I think it's been a really, really, really fantastic session. And I just want to say a big thank you to you all. Thank you so much for joining. I would call on the section chair to help us close the session, the person of Madam Ngozi Okonkwo, to give the closing remarks for the session. Hello, Madam Angie, are you there? Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining, and Ofure has shared with you the events we have lined up the next 1 month. Please do well to join so that you'll keep benefiting from us, from SPE. So on this note, I want to wish everyone a good night rest and a good weekend. Thanks. Good night.
Thank you, SC. Yeah, Simeon, you just help us with the national anthem as we close for the day. Thank you, Trudy, and do have a wonderful weekend. Right. Bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you all. Do take care. Have a wonderful weekend.